Since the earliest flickers of human consciousness, storytelling has been the thread weaving together the tapestry of our existence. Mythology, the grand collection of these stories, has shaped civilizations, inspired cultures, and carved the contours of how humanity understands itself in the universe. Although the names, settings, and characters shift with geography and time, the core narratives of mythologies around the world often follow astonishingly similar paths. Why do myths from ancient Egypt resemble those of the Greeks? How can the flood story be found from Mesopotamia to the Americas? What binds the hero's journey in Japan to that in Ireland? The answer lies not in coincidence, but in the shared roots of the human condition, psychology, and our universal quest for meaning. At the dawn of history, human beings faced a world bursting with mysteries. Thunderstorms roared without warning. The sun vanished nightly only to return. Birth and death seemed miraculous thresholds, and the cosmos stretched beyond comprehension. With no science to explain the inexplicable, early humans turned to story. Myths became their compass, attempts to map the unknown and impose order on chaos. One of the most persistent themes across mythologies is the creation story. From the cosmic egg in Hindu traditions to the formless void of Babylonian myth, creation narratives wrestle with the enigma of existence itself. What was before the world? How did life begin? The answers converge on a handful of motifs. The world emerging from primordial chaos, gods or cosmic beings shaping order from disorder, the birth of light and darkness, and humanity's emergence, often crafted from earth, clay, or divine breath. This universality reveals a profound truth. Regardless of culture or epoch, humans share a need to explain origins and find their place within the cosmic scheme. These myths are not mere fanciful tales, but foundational narratives that establish the framework for worldview and identity. Parallel to creation myths are stories of destruction and renewal, the eternal cycles reflected in nature and human life. Flood myths provide a striking example. The tale of a great deluge cleansing the earth recurs across continents in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bible, the Quran, and indigenous oral traditions worldwide. While details vary, the size of the boat, the nature of the flood, the characters involved, the core message is consistent. Catastrophe comes as judgment, but also paves the way for rebirth. Why floods? For ancient agricultural societies, water was both life-giver and destroyer. Seasonal floods nourished crops, but could also annihilate entire settlements. Flood myths encode these dual realities, blending memory, morality, and hope. Then there is the hero, the archetypal figure whose journey encapsulates human growth, struggle, and transformation. The psychologist Joseph Campbell identified the hero's journey as a universal narrative arc, a call to adventure, trials and temptations, death and rebirth, and ultimate return with newfound wisdom. From the labors of Hercules to the quests of King Arthur, from the adventures of the Monkey King in Chinese folklore to the tales of the Native American warriors, this motif resonates universally. The hero's journey mirrors not only physical quests, but also psychological development, confronting inner demons, overcoming fears, and evolving toward self-actualization. This psychological resonance explains the enduring power of the hero myth and its appearance across cultures. Myths also function as social blueprints. In times before written laws, myths encoded moral values and social norms, teaching communities about justice, loyalty, hospitality, and humility. The Greeks' concept of xenia, hospitality to strangers, was sacrosanct and enforced by tales of divine retribution for its violation. Similarly, many myths warn against hubris or excessive pride, illustrating the dangers of defying divine or natural order. Rituals entwined with myths cemented these lessons in lived experience. Ceremonies reenacted mythic events, fostering communal bonds and connecting people to the sacred cycles of nature and spirit. The Eleusinian mysteries reenacted Demeter's search for Persephone, symbolizing life's death and renewal, weaving myth into the heart of societal life. Across the globe, dualities such as light and dark, order and chaos, life and death, manifest vividly in myth. These opposing forces are personified as gods or cosmic principles, engaged in eternal struggle and balance. The Zoroastrian conflict between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu, the yin and yang of Taoist philosophy, and the dual gods in African myth all symbolize this essential tension. Animals and natural elements further enrich myths, embodying qualities from strength and wisdom to deception and renewal. The eagle soars as a divine messenger in many cultures. Serpents shed skin, symbolizing transformation. Rivers mark boundaries between the living and the dead. Mythologies also borrow and blend motifs through cultural exchange. Trade routes and conquests spread stories, adapting them to new lands and peoples. Yet even isolated cultures produce strikingly similar myths independently, pointing to deep-seated archetypes and universal human experiences. In short, mythologies tell the same stories because they emerge from the shared psyche of humanity, from our common challenges, fears, hopes, and the timeless questions that define us. They are not relics of the past, but living threads that connect us across time and space. As humanity progressed, the power of myth continued to evolve, intricately weaving itself into the fabric of social, political, and spiritual life. Myths became the foundation upon which civilizations built their identities, laws, and rituals. They served as collective memory banks, preserving not only the beliefs, but also the values and histories of communities across generations. In ancient Mesopotamia, for example, the Enuma Elish myth not only recounted the creation of the world, but also legitimized the supremacy of the god Marduk, and by extension the political authority of Babylon. Similarly, in Egypt, myths surrounding Osiris and Isis reinforced ideas about kingship, the afterlife, and cosmic order, providing the pharaoh with divine legitimacy. The intertwining of myth and governance demonstrates how stories functioned as more than entertainment. They were tools of power and cohesion. Kings and rulers traced their lineage to gods or heroic ancestors to affirm their right to rule, embedding political hierarchy within sacred narratives. This practice extended to indigenous societies as well, where tribal leaders often claimed spiritual descent or favor to maintain social order. Beyond politics, myths codified ethical systems and social norms. The flood myths mentioned earlier also conveyed moral lessons. Humanity's failings could bring divine wrath, yet redemption was possible through righteousness. Similarly, tales warning against hubris, greed, or disrespect for the divine reinforced communal harmony and humility. Mythic figures embodied virtues and vices, providing role models and cautionary examples. The wise counselor, the loyal friend, the treacherous betrayer. These characters became archetypes, guiding behavior and expectations. Their stories were retold at festivals, around campfires, and in sacred rituals, ensuring that their lessons permeated everyday life. Rituals often reenacted mythic events, reinforcing their significance and making abstract ideas tangible. For example, the Dionysian festivals celebrated themes of death and rebirth, chaos and order, reflecting the mythic narrative surrounding the god Dionysus. These ceremonies connected participants to cosmic cycles and societal values, blurring the line between myth and lived experience. The psychological dimension of myth also deepened with time. Carl Jung's analysis of archetypes revealed that myths resonate because they tap into universal patterns of the unconscious mind. The hero's journey, the great mother, the trickster, all serve as symbolic expressions of inner psychological processes. Myths externalize internal conflicts, fears, and aspirations, enabling individuals to navigate their personal journeys within the framework of communal stories. For example, the descent into the underworld, a common mythic motif, symbolizes confronting the shadow aspects of the self, facing death or transformation, and emerging renewed. This psychological reading aligns with myths from the Sumerian Inanna's descent to the Greek Orpheus and the Mayan hero twins. Moreover, myths have a unifying power that transcends differences. They reveal common ground between diverse peoples, affirming shared human experiences despite language, culture, or geography. The recurring motifs of creation, destruction, rebirth, and transformation speak to the fundamental rhythms of life that bind humanity together. Trade routes such as the Silk Road were not only conduits for goods, but also for stories and beliefs. As merchants and travelers moved, they carried myths that mingled with local traditions, creating rich tapestries of cultural exchange. Buddhism's spread from India to East Asia adapted local myths and symbols, blending old and new. In Africa, oral traditions maintained histories and cosmologies, passing down myths that shaped identity and connection to the land. Despite colonial disruptions, these stories persist, testifying to the resilience and adaptability of myth. In the modern world, myths continue to thrive, though often transformed into literature, film, and art. The hero's journey appears in countless novels and movies, from Star Wars to Harry Potter, proving the enduring relevance of ancient patterns. Ultimately, myths endure because they answer the most profound questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? What is my purpose? They connect us to something greater, a collective soul, a cosmic order, or simply the vast mystery of existence. Through myth, humanity finds both reflection and inspiration, weaving a story that unites us across time and space. At the core of many myths lies the human confrontation with death and the afterlife, a universal mystery that transcends culture and time. Death myths, after all, reflect humanity's deepest fears and hopes, grappling with the unknown journey that awaits every soul. Ancient civilizations imagined a variety of realms beyond life. The Egyptians pictured the Duat, a complex underworld where souls faced judgment before entering the eternal paradise of the Field of Reeds. The Greeks conceived Hades, a shadowy domain where spirits dwelled, while Norse mythology offered Valhalla, a warrior's heaven for those who died honorably in battle. These visions of the afterlife served multiple purposes. Psychologically, they provided comfort against the terror of mortality, offering hope for continuation or transformation beyond death. Morally, they reinforced societal values, promising rewards for virtue and punishments for transgression. Stories of resurrection and renewal pepper these myths. The Egyptian Osiris, killed and reborn, became a symbol of life's cyclical nature. The phoenix, a legendary bird that burns and rises anew, symbolizes immortality and renewal across cultures. These themes resonate deeply with human experience, reflecting cycles of loss, grief, and hope. Furthermore, death myths often incorporate journeys into the underworld, symbolic of inner transformation. Heroes like Orpheus, Inanna, and the Maya hero twins descend into darkness, confront death, and return changed. These narratives mirror psychological processes of confronting the unconscious, facing fears, and emerging wiser. Myths surrounding death also highlight the boundary between life and the unknown. offering maps to navigate this liminal space. They guide rituals of mourning, burial, and remembrance, helping societies cope with loss and honor the dead. In a broader sense, these stories underscore the universality of mortality and the human quest for meaning beyond physical existence. Despite variations, they speak to a shared human longing to transcend death's finality. Beyond death, myths explore the dualities that define existence: light and darkness, order and chaos, good and evil. These polarities manifest in cosmic battles between gods or forces, illustrating the eternal struggle that shapes the world and human destiny. From the Zoroastrian conflict of Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu to the yin-yang balance in Taoism, myths reflect the tension and harmony between opposing forces. These dualities are not only external, but internal, representing moral and psychological conflicts that every individual faces. Mythic narratives often present these struggles as cyclical rather than linear, emphasizing balance and transformation. The seasons, day and night, birth and death, all express this rhythm, teaching acceptance of change and the interdependence of opposites. The archetype of the trickster adds further complexity. The trickster defies norms, blurs boundaries, and injects chaos and creativity. Figures like Loki, Anansi, and Coyote embody ambiguity, reminding us that life is unpredictable and that disruption can lead to growth. Trickster myths function as social critiques, exposing flaws in authority and tradition while also celebrating adaptability and humor. Psychologically, they represent the shadow side of the self, the part that challenges, questions, and transforms. Animals and natural symbols enrich mythologies worldwide, serving as vehicles for meaning and connection. The serpent, the eagle, the wolf, each carries layered significance, representing wisdom, power, danger, or renewal. Nature itself becomes sacred in myth. Mountains, rivers, trees, and celestial bodies are not mere backdrops, but active participants in cosmic drama. Sacred spaces ground myths in physical reality, providing sites for worship and pilgrimage. Creation myths and end-of-world prophecies bookend mythic cosmologies, framing human existence within cycles of birth and destruction. These stories offer narratives of hope and caution, reminding humanity of its place in the grand scheme. Finally, the diffusion of myths through cultural contact explains similarities but also diversity. Trade, conquest, and migration carried stories across continents, blending and reshaping them. Yet, independent invention of similar motifs underscores the depth of shared human psychology. Today, myths persist in new forms, through literature, cinema, and art, continuing to inspire and guide. They remain vital tools for understanding ourselves and the world. In the grand tapestry of human storytelling, mythologies stand as threads, connecting past and present, self and other, earth and cosmos. The reason mythologies across cultures tell the same stories lies in their roots within the universal human experience. A shared language of symbols, archetypes, and existential inquiry. Myths arise from humanity's need to explain the unknown, the origins of the universe, the forces of nature, the mysteries of life and death. They encode collective memories of triumph and tragedy, weaving them into narratives that instruct, comfort, and inspire. At their core, myths serve multiple purposes. They provide psychological guidance, helping individuals navigate inner conflicts and transformations. They establish social frameworks defining norms and values. They connect communities to sacred cycles and cosmic order. And they offer metaphors for the eternal dance of creation and destruction. The persistence of archetypal patterns, the hero's journey, the cosmic battle, the descent to the underworld, the trickster's chaos, reveals the depth of our shared unconscious. These motifs echo across continents and epochs because they articulate fundamental aspects of human life and consciousness. Cultural exchanges have spread and enriched mythic traditions, while independent invention attests to the innate structures of the human mind. The convergence of myths testifies to the interconnectedness of humanity, transcending boundaries of language, geography, and time. In an age of rapid change and fragmentation, myths remind us of our common humanity. They invite us to look beyond differences and recognize the universal questions and stories that bind us. Ultimately, myths are living stories, ever-changing yet eternal, that continue to shape our understanding of who we are and where we belong in the cosmos. Through their timeless narratives, myths invite us to join the great human journey, to seek meaning, embrace mystery, and weave our own stories into the fabric of existence.